Welcome to Garden-Wise Adventures. My name is Malie, and today it's time for the end of the year recap for my Utah Zone 6/7 garden. Now, I want to show you what is growing right now, talk a little bit about what I've harvested, and whether or not I feel this garden year has been a success or a failure. Now, we are in the middle of June. It's been an extremely long, beautiful summer. Even though this is October, the color in the mountains are starting to fade and it's starting to move down to the valley floors. It's been really, really warm. We've stayed in the mid to upper 80s all the way through to this point. And this is highly unusual for Utah. Usually by this time we've had a killing freeze, we've had several frosts, and everything in the garden is on its way to going to sleep. Now, next week we're going to hit 33 degrees, which is going to, probably freeze some parts of my garden. Other parts will probably not get frozen, and I haven't seen any actual freezing temperatures or killing frosts coming, after that. So it's a very, very long fall. I've enjoyed it a lot. So let's go through my garden, talk to you about the successes and the failures, and talk a little bit about plans for next year. So this is the base of my garden. This is the oldest part of my garden. I put all of these beds in 2007, or actually it was 2007 that I put these beds in. And they've done really, really well for me, and they've grown me a ton of food. Now this year was a weird year. We stayed really, really cold in June. It was like in the 60s and 70s till the end of June, which is unusual for Utah. And then we rocketed to the 100 degrees and had more 100-degree days than we've ever had before. And this fall, like I said, has been a really, really long, warm fall. So the plants are looking a little different than they do normally this time of year. I've torn most of my summer crops out because I'm trying to get this taken care of early this year, so I don't have a huge crunch of cleanup all at the same time. But I only have one pepper left. Now I have to tell you, my peppers were my biggest success. I have a year's supply of frozen peppers in my freezer. I think I probably did about 20 quarts altogether, including the ones that I've already eaten, of pickled peppers. I did a ton of hot sauce and have a ton left in the freezer so that I can make more hot sauce. And I think it was 13 quarts of salsa, plus salsa verde. I think I had about 8 quarts of salsa verde. The only ones left are my Sugar Rush peach, and they're almost ripe, but I'm gonna leave them till probably the day before the frost hits, and then harvest these last ones and pull out this last plant. Actually though, this isn't my last pepper plant. Let's go show you my other pepper plants. This is another one that I'm going to leave until the freeze hits. I'm going to harvest the rest of them just before the freeze hits because I want to ripen up as many of these jalapenos as I can so that I can make... Sorry, you're just going to have to deal with the shadow, I guess, because I can't find a good position for filming without the shadow. But I want to ripen up as many of these jalapenos up as possible so I can make some more sriracha sauce. My son moved back in with me, and it turns out he absolutely loves the sriracha sauce. I love it too, so we're having to make double to triple the amount I've normally made in past years. But they are ripening up really nicely. The ones that don't ripen, I can chop up and put them in the freezer. But this will stay until the freeze hits next week. So here are a couple more that I'm going to leave until the first freeze. These peppers were actually planted last September and grown inside, and I harvested off them indoors all winter long, and then I've harvested off of them all summer. So they are absolutely gorgeous. We've got a lot more. So I'll just leave these out until the freeze. And I've decided, I know that I could bring these back inside to my grow room and grow them throughout the winter inside and continue harvesting. But as a confession, my grow room, I'll link some videos up above on my grow room. I usually grow a ton of edibles there all winter. I have succulents, I have citrus trees. But one year I brought peppers in from outdoors, and I think I completely infested my grow room. I had thrips, spider mites. Fungus gnats are just a part of nature, and you just have fungus gnats. But I had so much pest issues that I just couldn't get control of, that I finally, when my brother died in February, when my brother died, I kind of left my grow room and I haven't looked back. And everything in there, literally, even the succulents are all dead. So I am starting over completely, and my number one rule is going to be I'm not bringing in plants from the outdoors. The only exception going to be my aloe vera that is looking pretty good right now. I'm going to repot the aloe vera, probably take out one pup and start over with the aloe vera. But this will probably be the only thing that goes indoors, and what I'll probably do is take all the soil out of the pot, all the soil off the roots, dip that in an insecticide, an organic insecticide, and hopefully not bring in any more spider mites and thrips. So these are the last of my peppers, and I have been enjoying the peppers this year. Now, one of the things that I finally just gave up this year and purchased all of my canned tomatoes and tomato sauce are my tomatoes. Our cool spring made it so I couldn't plant these till mid-June, and then it was hit 100 degrees. They grew beautifully, but I did not actually get tomatoes on these plants until, maybe a month ago. Now all of the tomatoes are starting to ripen up, and I need to pull these out today. Today is the day they need to come out, so I can space out my garden cleanup enough that it's not so overwhelming. So we've got a ton of tomatoes that I'll probably ripen some of them indoors. The one success on my tomatoes has been my purple tomatoes. This is the GMO Norfolk purple tomatoes. I have a full grocery bag of those in the house right now that I think I'll probably make some sauce out of. See if I get a purple sauce. I may take you along on that project, or at least show you the finished product. These are delicious. They are prolific, they grow easily, and I think these will just always be a part of my garden. Even though they're GMO tomatoes, I'm not at all worried about GMO products. And they're purple. Look at that color. Very sweet, tart. I think they have the perfect tomato flavor. The one thing that I don't know, though, is if the sauce is going to be purple. What I do know is the dehydrated tomatoes turn an ugly brown color, and so I don't like them dehydrated, but we're going to see what the sauce looks like. Another one that I've loved and I'm absolutely going to continue to grow are these indigo kumquat tomatoes. They're gorgeous and they are so delicious. I love a salad mixed with these and the GMO purple tomatoes. It makes a gorgeous, gorgeous salad. Now the tomatoes that are ripening up, I will probably just can those into regular canned tomatoes. I do, like I said, I purchased sauce. I have plenty of sauce, and I don't use enough of it to make these into sauce, and I probably don't have enough of these tomatoes to actually do sauce. Most recipes call for at least 20 pounds, and there's not 20 pounds out here. This is a variety I am not growing again. I actually threw away this packet of seeds because, they're a beautiful tomato, but once they ripen like this, you've got about 30 seconds before they get too soft, and then they split. And the flavor is just a bland tomato flavor. It is not one of my favorites. The seed packet said that these were sun sugar, and I don't believe it. I don't believe they're sun sugar. I think it was just a mixed up seed packet. Now the last squash that is left in my garden, and I had an excellent squash here, are these center cut squash. Sorry once again for the shadow. But the center cut squash are absolutely amazing. The one thing is they seem to, actually these are finally I'm not leaving the fingernail print in there, so I'll be able to harvest those. But the flavor on using these as winter squash is absolutely amazing. They've got a silky texture and a very, very rich, delicious flavor. They make the best soup. So if you want a pumpkin soup or squash soup, these are definitely the best for the flavor. I've got a few more over here that aren't quite ripe. And then it's set fruit really late in the year. These definitely aren't going to have time to ripen, but we're just going to leave these on the vine for probably until just the day before the freeze, and then harvest them. These are another one that I'm going to have every year. This is the first time I've grown pole beans. This is the Northeastern or something like that. I'll put the name on the screen. But the flavor has been excellent through the whole season. Even when they get a little bit big, they don't get stringy. They're too mature right now. But I heard that you could also use these as a baked bean. So I'm going to try that, a dried bean. So I'm going to leave these on the vine as long as possible, which is only until next week. See if we can get some mature enough to use them as dehydrated beans, and then also save some for seed. So these will stay until the freeze happens. The rest of this has already been harvested. All the tomatoes out of there were harvested and taken out. All the zucchini and squash here was taken out. Melons, the vines died before a lot of them got a chance to ripen, but we did get several that ripened and they were good. This was a topaz melon. Absolutely loved it. The more I think about it, the more I think I'm just going to pull all of this kale and chard out. I did a video on watering, and I talked about whether or not I was going to be removing these plants. They will survive the winter, especially if covered, but they won't grow anymore. And what I found in the last 5 years of leaving them out in the garden covered is I don't come out here to harvest them because I grow them indoors in my grow room, and I harvest what I have in my grow room. So I'll probably cut these back, freeze them, and use them that way, and then just leave that bed empty. My Sun Gold tomato, that is my favorite tomato, did not produce very well. That's why I left it up, is we've got a few more ready to ripen. This obviously is not going to survive the freeze that's coming. So we'll just leave it out here until it freezes, and then we'll just pull it out. The Jerusalem artichokes, they need to have that freeze hit them and have the stalks die back, and then I will cut those back and harvest those. Until then, I'm going to have to really watch and make sure this does not need any water, because our secondary water has been turned off. I planted these cabbages and kohlrabi in July for a fall harvest, and it worked beautifully. We've got some that are not really close, but they can go through a freeze and be okay. This one hasn't filled out yet either. We've got a little kohlrabi over here. But we've got one at perfect harvest size right here. This is the Schuenberg. Well, I'll put the name on the screen. It's a different name. But it's a giant kohlrabi that does not get woody as it gets larger. And they are so sweet and delicious. I grow them 3 times a year. So the cabbage in this bed isn't quite ready to harvest, but let me go show you a bed where it is ready to harvest. But before we go up to the top, I think this is the last time I'm actually going to try to grow purple cabbage. I have never gotten purple cabbage to harvestable size, even if I planted in the spring. They're gorgeous, they get about this size, and then they stall out and the heads don't get any larger. I don't know if we just have the wrong type of season. Maybe you need a much longer, cooler season, but I think this is the end of purple cabbage for me. And we've got several heads of a different variety here that are ready to be harvested. It's quite firm. I'll probably leave these a couple of more weeks and let's see what they do. So I did plant 2 varieties. One was Glory of, I'll just put that on the screen, and the other one was Early Jersey Wakefield. I think these are Early Jersey Wakefields, and the one that has the Glory as the first part of the name is not ready to harvest yet. We've got carrots that I'm going to overwinter, and these actually did beautifully. I finally took the time to come in and thin as much as possible. Got another one I've got to thin there. But they're actually starting, some of them are starting to try and become larger. I mean, I see all these people harvesting these giant carrots. I have never been able to harvest giant carrots. They're usually about finger size for me. But I'm going to leave these in ground all winter and see what happens next spring. This whole bed will be covered with frost cloth and with plastic, and they should do fine. The beets, on the other hand, this is about the size that they get when I plant them in the fall. So I'm going to leave them as long as possible, probably cover them, see if we can get more size to them, keep them watered, and see if we can harvest any beets out of this at all. We removed my cucumbers, and this was like one of the best cucumber years I've ever had. I've got 24 quarts of pickles, and we gave away probably about 8 bags, maybe even more, 8 grocery bags of cucumbers that I wasn't able to use. Oh, I also canned about 6 or 7 quarts of pickle relish. So yeah, I planted 7 plants. They're the Marketmore 76. They're the ones that I've grown every year. They're a long cucumber, but they're perfect for pickles. I absolutely love these for pickles, and I love them fresh. They never turn bitter, even if they get a little bit on the dry side. So these, I've never planted another variety, and I don't think I ever will plant another variety. So overall, this has been an amazing year. My goal is always to grow enough food that I don't need to purchase any fruits or vegetables for almost the entire year. And I accomplished that this year. The only thing that I don't grow that I purchase at the grocery store is broccoli. I've never had good experience growing broccoli. So I may try to do that next year and see what happens. But we grew enough tomatillos that I was able to give away bags and bags of them, and I made probably 7 or 8 quarts of salsa verde. Now, I'm not a big salsa verde eater, so I don't know if I'll grow tomatillos again, but you know, it actually turned out really good this year. The year before, I didn't wash the tomatillos off properly, and it was nasty, so I had to throw away everything that I canned. But this year, I got enough salsa verde. I got enough tomatoes that I was actually able to make a year's supply of just regular garden salsa. I grew onions that I still am using. It was a bad year for onions, but I still have enough that I'm still using them and had enough for all my canning purposes. My garlic was amazing this year. I always have a year's supply and over for fresh garlic use and dehydrated garlic use. I have tons of zucchini that's grated up in the refrigerator and ate all the zucchini and summer squash that I wanted. I have enough winter squash for the year. My sweet potato harvest, and I'll link a video up here that shows you, was very disappointing. We're going to try again next year and try a different fertilizer method for it next year. But overall, even though there were some downsides this year, the overall garden year was amazing. Now, I would love to hear how your garden year was, if you had tough growing conditions like we did here in Utah, and what you did about them, and then what your plans are for next year. Next year, I plan on planting my tomatoes a little bit earlier and planting them under cover. I'll leave just one of my low hoop coverings with greenhouse plastic over the top. I'll leave that open for the tomatoes in the spring and plant them in early May again, like I usually do. Not wait for it to get cold and just plan on covering them. Worked beautifully in prior years, and I think I'll have to do that again this next year. I will plant just as many peppers as I did this year. This year I thought I planted too many, but I planted just the right amount for a full year's supply of peppers. I've got to decide whether or not I'm going to do tomatillos again next year. I may end up doing that because the salsa verde is actually pretty good and it might actually grow on me. I may want more. Sweet potatoes, we're going to try a different method and see if we can actually get large sweet potatoes. We're going to plant just as much squash, maybe a little bit more, because I absolutely love the winter squash and the summer squash. And basically, I'm just looking forward again to next year. The one thing that's going to change this year is I probably won't have an early spring, late winter garden like I normally do. To have that, I would have had to plant all my plants that are sitting on my porch weeks ago. And I just didn't have the time and energy to do that. You know, maybe I will plant those, put them under cover and see what happens to them, but I don't expect a lot out of them because it's really late in the year to be planting them. So now, as I said, I would love to hear what your plans are for next year, what your successes were this year, and what your failures were. So hopefully this video has been helpful for you. If it has been helpful, I hope you like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.